Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to be joined with Eleanor, who's come all the way from Chicago to be with us with her fantastic film, How May I Help You? Let's take a look at the clip.
He act like he don't know how to answer how to do the phone. Call me at Grandma's at 281-71.
Is there anything at all I can do for you regarding your account?
This is Chris. Please help me.
You were my first caller, and it was an easy one, so...
Eleanor, firstly, welcome to the NewFilmmakers LA family.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, and thank you so much for coming from the lovely Chicago to be here with us. And thank you for bringing this film. You know you had our whole audience just talking and asking questions and fascinated with your film. For those of our audience that haven't seen it, tell us a little bit about your film.
Sure, yeah. How May I Help You is a hybrid documentary film that reimagines a series of personal encounters between call center workers and strangers.
As you've heard probably a lot on your festival experience, this is a brilliant, brilliant idea and a brilliant, brilliant film. Like really, really. I mean, I know you've come from a documentary background as well, so now you moved into this hybrid kind of experience. Where was the moments, what was that the moments in this kind of development where you come up with this idea and then wanted to circulate that into a film, and particularly in sort of a hybrid fashion?
Yeah, so the first seed of inspiration for this film really came from my good friend Bridget, who, when they moved to Chicago, they had had a really long day moving, and all they wanted to do before they went to bed is watch a show, which meant they needed Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So they called an Xfinity representative, and that conversation ended up being the best part of their day and sort of made them feel at home in their new space. And I was really inspired by that moment because I've had a lot of fleeting moments of personal connection myself with various service workers, both when I have worked service jobs and over the phone as a customer. So I was interested in the job of call center work, and I began doing research. So I approached it like a documentary. I have to give Reddit a lot of credit for my research.
Reddit, a lot of credit. I like that. That could be a title of your next film. Yeah.
But yeah, so I was lurking in a few different Reddit threads where call center workers were sharing their experiences for a while, just sort of researching and getting the lay of the land. And then I eventually made a post, and a lot of people wanted to speak with me. So I interviewed dozens of call center workers over the phone, most of them anonymously, and then also had a lot of DM conversations where people shared their stories. And yeah, really just it seemed like a lot of people wanted to be heard and that there wasn't a lot of information on this subject, so I ran with it.
I mean, I know it sounds, I mean, it's almost amazing that no one's really ever like done this, you know. I'm like, I mean, it's such a brilliant, brilliant idea. And, you know, and having been in service and being a call center worker as well, and then being several times on the other side, you know, it's such a strange dynamic, isn't it? Like even the idea that we're on this phone with these strangers about internet or whatever it may be. But then you get these encounters sometimes, I'm sure you said in your life and my life, I'm like, wow, that person really did change my day. You know, sometimes for the good, sometimes not for good, whatever it may be going on in our lives. And then sometimes we share way more with a stranger than we do with our own people that we know, right?
Yeah.
And you capture that so great with these incredible stories. How is it like, you know, you got these people that come, I'm sure you got a lot of people come forward to want to talk to you, right?
I was surprised by how many people wanted to speak to me.
Yeah.
It was amazing how many people wanted to share their stories, and the script is really to their credit. Because even the stories that didn't make it into the film informed which stories I chose to be those 3 vignettes that make up the film now.
I mean, it's like almost like it should be a series, because I mean, it's never-ending stories, really. But you know, and the stories that you chose, you know, I mean, it really, there's just elements of, you know, there's some really, really beautiful moments, and there's some really like you can't believe it moments, but you know that these things would happen with crazy, annoying, horrible people doing things to people that they don't know. And then there's some really scary moments of just like, you know, people with loneliness and all kinds of things. How did you go about choosing these particular stories, and why were these stories important for you to put into the film?
Yeah, so I had originally gone into the process of making this film in hopes of finding moments where people kind of break through the alienation of their jobs and are able to express themselves a little more genuinely and have positive moments of connection. once I started researching, I learned that that was less often the case than I had hoped, which makes sense. And I think that's part of why this film is important, because not everybody thinks about the human being on the other side of the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I interviewed tons of people. I found that themes of sexual harassment were recurring. I found that there were these sweet stories that were coming up, or stories of loneliness rather, where somebody was looking for connection and didn't really have another outlet, and that came through over the phone, probably because the de-individuation of the voice allows us to feel a little more intimate, but also safe enough to expose ourselves. And then I also wanted to highlight the limitations you face in these types of jobs. So no matter how much you want to help somebody as an individual, there's only so much information and so much you can do. So in the last story, the person is a call center worker for insurance benefits company, not the actual manufacturer. So he wants with all his heart to help this woman who's trying to get a life-saving medication for her son, but he's only working with one PDF of information. And so, yeah, I just wanted to, those were the stories that I felt really represented the people I was talking to at large. But something else that kept recurring that didn't make it into the film was also anger. I think call center workers receive a lot of anger, and I didn't find a story that perfectly represented that. I didn't think I had the scope, but that's something I would like to include, and if I were to expand it, I would also like to include the global context of call center work with outsourcing. So a lot of people I spoke to were in Mexico or the Philippines or India, and I think it's really important to address also the outsourcing of call center work and having to speak in a different language and a different accent, and how that kind of increases the toll on the call center worker.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I think the characters that or the stories that were true that you developed, and the actors were so good as well. You had really fantastic actors, and really it really felt like this was. I mean, obviously these were real conversations, but it really I felt like I was on this call with them. It was almost scary being on the. I felt like I was listening to someone's conversation, But you really just got all the different dynamics and just how remembering there's a human on the end of the line. I think that's something we, even just in daily life, we forget, just to celebrate people that are in service, in these positions in person or on the phone. And you just captured that really well. So taking it back from just kind of that whole experience, and certainly as a documentarian as well, I'm sure there's always hope for your documentaries of what you want your audience to experience from your film. And I'm curious, with this film being a hybrid, what did you want your audience to sort of experience from your film that you made here?
Yeah, I think I wanted them to, well, first of all, I wanted to represent, I think, an underrepresented part of this world. And I've had people come up to me and say that they're going to treat call center workers differently, or they won't think about it the same next time. And I've also had a number of call center workers or previous call center workers come up to me and say that they felt like they saw themselves in this film, which means the world. I mean, that's the most I could hope for. So that, and also I was interested in the blurring of the personal and the professional, and I think service work is an area where that happens a lot, where, especially as a call center worker, your personality and the brand kind of meld together, and there's a lot of censorship of how you're communicating, and I just wanted to give people a peek into that world.
I mean, it's quite fascinating when you really think about it even deep. I mean, I could talk about this call center for days, but it's just quite fascinating because you've been every emotion on a phone call. You've been every emotion. Humanity we can't help it as humans. We've been happy, angry, sad, joyful, all of those things. And, and I think even when we've also probably seen the worst and the best of ourselves on a call center phone, which is a very interesting. So I'm like, Eleanor, does it stop here? Are you going to make, is this a series? I mean, I would want to watch every single call center. I mean, this is brilliant idea. Where are you taking us next, Eleanor?
I mean, I have a lot of stories. I have a lot of transcripts. I have considered developing it into a feature before. I haven't thought about a series, but that's been suggested to me by audience members. So I'm definitely considering it.
Only because it's never ending, It's and I think there's so much growth of learning in these people, you know, and these characters. We never know what the person on the end of the phone is going through. In terms of you as a director and making this particular production, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So as I said, it began with a lot of research.
Yeah.
And that research entailed me sort of putting myself in the position of my subjects by having these intimate phone conversations with strangers. So that was an interesting way to sort of warm up, and I think it helped when I was eventually working with my actors. But one of the things that was important to me as a director was the scene partners never actually met each other in person.
Yes. Oh, yes, right, yeah.
So they only have met over the phone, they rehearsed over the phone, and I wanted to maintain that mystery of who that person on the other end really was. And that also shows up in the way that we only see one side of the conversation as an audience member.
That's such a clever move. Like, that was an important element that some people may have missed, but that was really good, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think the subject matter kind of called for it being anonymous, which recreation I think lends itself well. But I also wanted to address the fact that these are memories of one side of the call. Yeah. We don't know the other person's experience, and they've also been filtered through a creative lens.
Yeah,
So,
of course,
yeah, I think kind of calling attention to the fact that these are interpretations of true events rather than some sort of verite depiction of call center work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so obviously beyond this hopefully never-ending series you're going to create for all of us to enjoy, aside from that, what are you working on as well? Because I know you're working on some really amazing things as well.
I am working on a few shorts.
Yeah.
I am collaborating with a bunch of people as a colorist, an editor, and cinematographer.
Amazing.
And I'm also developing a feature film currently about the reintegration of wartime chemicals into peacetime products after World War II in the U.S. through the Green Revolution. So that's a longer project I'm developing.
That's amazing.
And then I'm working on a couple of shorts of my own.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, whichever world you take us next, please come back to us. Please bring your films to us, and well done on making this film. I know people were just constantly talking about it, so thank you very, very much. And thank you for coming all the way from Chicago as well.
Gosh, thank you. This has been an amazing weekend.